Welcome to Dolphin Dive Daily, your go-to spot for everything Miami Dolphins. If you bleed aqua and orange, hit that subscribe button and join the pod. The NFL offseason never really ends. It just takes on new forms. And if you needed proof of that, look no further than the constant carousel of trade rumors. One of the juiciest names to pop up in speculation this year was none other than Tyreek Hill, one of the most explosive, game-breaking wide receivers of the past decade. His name in headlines isn't new. After all, Hill's career has been marked by electric plays on the field and unsettling controversies off it. But what caught fans by surprise was the sudden surge of reports tying him to potential trades, most notably involving the Kansas City Chiefs and the Pittsburgh Steelers. But as fast as those rumors picked up steam, they've already hit a serious roadblock. The Steelers, who looked like a legitimate suitor just a week ago, are officially backing out of the sweepstakes for Hill, at least for now, and the reasoning behind that decision speaks volumes about how teams balance talent, character concerns, and the harsh realities of NFL discipline. It all started in the aftermath of Miami's brutal 33-8 loss to the Indianapolis Colts in Week 1, a defeat that didn't just sting. It set off alarm bells about the Dolphins' trajectory for the season. At 0-1 and looking shaky, the chatter around the league immediately turned toward whether Miami might become a seller if things didn't improve. Tyreek Hill, despite his obvious talent, quickly became the centerpiece of those conversations. The Chiefs, Hill's former team, reportedly entertained the idea of a reunion, while the Steelers, who are constantly searching for ways to inject more firepower into their offense, were floated as an equally intriguing destination. Imagine, for a moment, Hill catching deep balls in Pittsburgh alongside DK Metcalf, another player whose name has been linked to the black and gold. That vision had fans salivating and stirred a lot of speculation. But then came a curveball no one in Pittsburgh's front office could ignore. Just a day after that ugly loss to the Colts, a new round of off-the-field allegations surfaced against Hill. His estranged wife, Keita Vaccaro, accused him of 8 separate incidents of domestic violence, some of which allegedly took place while she was pregnant. These were not whispers or old accusations being recycled. These were fresh claims with enough weight that the NFL, always sensitive to optics when it comes to domestic violence, would almost certainly have to investigate. According to Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk, the Steelers' interest in Hill had sparked before these allegations went public, but once the news broke, their stance changed dramatically. Pittsburgh pulled the plug, citing concerns over a potential suspension and the uncertainty surrounding Hill's immediate future. This move doesn't come as a surprise to anyone who understands the Steelers' organizational philosophy. Historically, Pittsburgh has prided itself on a culture of stability, discipline, and a certain standard of player conduct. While they've had their share of controversies over the years, from Antonio Brown's flameout to Martavis Bryant's suspensions, the Steelers are not in the business of willingly importing chaos. For them, trading valuable draft capital or young talent for a 31-year-old wideout facing domestic violence allegations was simply a bridge too far. The risk-reward equation didn't add up, and in the ruthless math of NFL roster construction, the Steelers decided to wait this one out. The big question, though, is whether Pittsburgh's stance is merely a pause or a permanent withdrawal. The trade deadline doesn't arrive until November 4th, which means there's a wide window of time for clarity to emerge around Hill's situation. If the NFL investigates quickly and no suspension is handed down, at least not during the 2025 season, teams might feel emboldened to revisit trade talks. Hill, after all, is still under contract through 2026, but the financial reality of that deal is one of the biggest reasons Miami might actually want to part ways with him. He's due $36 million in total compensation and carries a staggering $51.9 million cap hit next year. That kind of number is unsustainable for a Dolphins team that looks increasingly like it's heading for a reset. Florio has already confirmed that if Hill isn't traded this year, he's likely to be cut by March. That means Miami has every incentive to move him now, before they lose him for nothing. For Pittsburgh, though, the calculus goes beyond cap numbers and stat sheets. This is a franchise with a proud identity, one that thrives on hard-nosed football and a locker room culture that values team-first mentality. Bringing in a player of Hill's caliber would undoubtedly transform the offense. Through the first 3 games of this season, Hill has still shown he can produce, recording 15 catches for 198 yards and a touchdown despite Miami's struggles. His speed remains unmatched, and his ability to tilt the field instantly is something very few defenses can scheme against. Pairing him with DK Metcalf, if that move ever materializes, would give Pittsburgh a 1-2 punch at receiver that could rival any duo in the league. But would the Steelers be willing to gamble their season, and potentially their reputation, on a player whose off-field issues seem to follow him everywhere? Right now, the answer is no. From the Dolphins' perspective, this situation is just as complicated. At 0-3, Miami already looks like a team on the verge of collapse. Their playoff hopes are quickly slipping away, and the questions surrounding head coach Mike McDaniel's long-term viability are growing louder by the week. A dramatic turnaround would be needed to justify keeping their veteran stars, but the writing is already on the wall. If the Dolphins don't string together wins soon, they'll become sellers by November, and Hill will sit at the top of the list of trade chips. The irony, of course, is that even as Hill faces potential suspension, his talent is so undeniable that teams will still line up to inquire about him if the smoke clears. The Chiefs might crave that reunion. The Eagles, Ravens, or even the Lions could be dark horse suitors. But for now, one team has made it clear: the Steelers are out. And yet, we all know how quickly things can change in the NFL. Injuries, desperation, and playoff races have a way of shifting priorities. If Pittsburgh rattles off a few wins and finds itself sitting at 5-2 or 6-3 by the time November rolls around, the temptation to revisit Hill could grow. The Steelers' passing attack has been under fire for years, with fans clamoring for more creativity and explosiveness. Adding Metcalf would help, but adding Hill would redefine the entire offense. On the flip side, if Pittsburgh stumbles and looks more like a middling team than a true contender, they might double down on their current decision and avoid any risky trades. It's a delicate balance, and the Steelers are playing it cautiously. There's also the human element here, one that often gets overshadowed by the spectacle of football. The allegations against Hill are serious, and while the league has a track record of being inconsistent in how it handles discipline, the public perception matters. Fans remember Ray Rice. They remember Greg Hardy. They remember Kareem Hunt. The NFL cannot afford another high-profile player skating by without accountability. That means Hill's situation isn't just about whether he can help a team win games. It's about whether his presence will alienate fans, sponsors, and even teammates. The Steelers, more than most franchises, are acutely aware of that dynamic. So where does this leave us? Right now, the story is in limbo. The Dolphins are spiraling, the trade deadline looms, and Tyreek Hill remains one of the most polarizing figures in the league. His future is as uncertain as ever, and every development between now and November will be dissected through the lens of whether he can be traded, whether he'll be suspended, and whether any team will be willing to take the risk. For the Steelers, the message is clear. Until there's clarity, they're staying out of it. But don't mistake that for a permanent no. In the NFL, doors that appear shut often creak open again when the stakes get high enough. In the meantime, Steelers fans are left to focus on what they can control: the team's current performance, the adjustments needed to fix glaring issues, and the hope that their season won't be defined by the trades they didn't make. Former Steelers running back Merrill Hodge recently pointed out exactly what Pittsburgh must fix right now if they want to compete, and his comments reflect the urgency surrounding this team. Whether it's cleaning up the offensive line, stabilizing quarterback play, or shoring up the defense, the Steelers have plenty of challenges without adding the circus that Tyreek Hill would bring. Still, the allure of his speed and playmaking ability will linger like a ghost over trade conversations, a reminder that sometimes the most tantalizing possibilities are also the most dangerous. In the end, Tyreek Hill's story is bigger than football. It's about a league constantly torn between talent and accountability, between winning games and standing for something larger. The Steelers' decision to step away, at least for now, is a statement about where they draw the line. Whether that line holds when November rolls around, that's the real drama yet to unfold. Still with us? Then show some love. Hit that like button and let us know in the comments. What's your take on the Fins this week? The news that just started to ripple through the NFL community feels like one of those whispers that quickly grows into a roar, the kind of move that doesn't immediately shake the league, but could very well become the turning point of a season. Miami has locked it in. Kendrick Bourne is now officially a Dolphin. It's not Tyreek Hill. It's not Jalen Waddle. It's not the kind of headline that usually blows up social media with millions of likes and instant memes. But this one carries a particular weight. Why? Because Bourne comes in as that WR3 who might be exactly what Mike McDaniel's offense has been craving. The piece that looks subtle but ends up unlocking doors all across the field. Miami is betting not just on his ability to run crisp routes or to win contested catches, but on the ripple effect of inserting someone who can punish defenses that already lose sleep over Hill and Waddle. And let's be honest, every defensive coordinator in the league has spent hours scheming ways to keep those two speedsters contained, only to realize that leaving any gap, any misstep, means 6 points flying on the scoreboard. Now imagine having to deal with Bourne lurking underneath or stretching the seam, a guy who has proven time and again that he thrives when the spotlight isn't all on him. That's the essence of a WR3, quiet danger, devastating efficiency, and the ability to flip a third down into a dagger play. The Dolphins know that in today's NFL, the WR3 is no longer a luxury. It's not just about having 2 stars and filling the depth chart with whoever's available. Teams that win deep into January, teams that get past the Bills, the Chiefs, the Bengals, they're loaded at wideout. They come at you in waves, in mismatches, and they leave you asking which corner or safety you're going to trust on an island. Bourne slides right into that blueprint. What makes him special isn't just the numbers, though he's put up respectable seasons. It's the way he complements elite receivers. In New England, he flashed even when the offense was sputtering. He found space, he worked zones, and he had that knack for showing up in the biggest moments. Now, plugged into a system that thrives on motion, creativity, and speed, his role has the potential to expand in ways nobody outside of Miami is really prepared for. Bourne doesn't have to be a star. He has to be the constant headache. Every time defenses try to double Hill or shade coverage toward Waddle, Bourne becomes the release valve, the sudden spark, the receiver who punishes the smallest defensive gamble. There's a reason Dolphins fans are buzzing, even if it's not the loudest headline of the offseason. Miami's offense was already terrifying when healthy, and adding another weapon feels like cheating in a way. Think back to last year, when Hill and Waddle were banged up, or when Tua had to hold the ball a tick longer than he wanted. The lack of a consistent third target showed up. Defenses could gamble, load the box, and dare Miami to look beyond their 2 stars. That's not going to be the case anymore. Bourne's arrival means there's always a chain mover on the field, always a savvy route runner who can exploit a mismatch. And in McDaniel's offense, that role doesn't just mean occasional targets. It means motion sweeps, quick outs, design mismatches against linebackers, and plenty of chances to shine when defenses are already gas-chasing Hill across the field. Bourne becomes that chess piece who doesn't look like the queen at first glance, but ends up shifting the board entirely. It's also about personality and fit. Bourne has always been described as a locker room spark, a guy teammates gravitate toward, someone who brings energy even when the scoreboard doesn't. Miami has been carefully building a culture around belief, swagger, and creativity, and Bourne meshes right into that. He's not a diva wideout looking for the spotlight. He's the worker, the grinder, the one who celebrates every yard like it matters. For a Dolphins team that has the flash at the top of the depth chart, that energy might be the glue they've been missing in those tough stretches when games turn into dogfights. This isn't just about numbers. It's about the vibe of the room, the energy of the sideline, and the way that can cascade into performances on the field. Miami isn't just collecting talent. They're curating it, making sure every piece aligns with McDaniel's vision. The rumor mill had been churning for a while, but now that it's official, you can almost sense the relief among Dolphins fans. They've been waiting for that third guy, that insurance policy, that missing piece to make the offense feel whole. The move doesn't scream blockbuster, but in football, sometimes it's the quiet acquisitions that end up echoing the loudest by December. Think of those playoff games where Hill is drawing a bracket coverage, Waddle is battling through a top corner, and suddenly Bourne is streaking across the middle with 10 yards of space. That's not fantasy. It's exactly the kind of scenario Miami just bought into. And that's the nightmare for defenses. They've been planning for Hill and Waddle all offseason. But who has the personnel to keep up with a legitimate WR3 when the first 2 options already require so much attention? There's also the quarterback factor. Tua Tagovailoa has been under a microscope since the day he was drafted, and every year the conversation shifts between believers and doubters. What no one can deny is that his efficiency skyrockets when he has reliable weapons who can separate quickly. BOURNE gives him exactly that. Another safety blanket, another option to keep the chains moving, another chance to stay upright and in rhythm instead of holding the ball too long. For a quarterback who thrives on anticipation and timing, having a precise route runner like BOURNE can be the difference between a stalled drive and a back-breaking third-down conversion. Miami isn't just giving Tua more weapons, they're giving him more answers. And in the NFL, where margins are razor-thin, answers are everything. Critics will point out that BOURNE isn't a superstar, that his stats don't jump off the page, that he's more role player than highlight machine. But that's exactly the point. Miami doesn't need another superstar. They already have two of the best in the league. What they needed was someone who accepts and excels in the WR3 role, someone who can be relied upon when the game script shifts, when injuries hit, when defenses overcommit. BOURNE has lived in that space his entire career. He's used to being overlooked, used to working behind bigger names, and yet every season he finds ways to remind people why he belongs. Plugging that mentality into this Miami offense makes the Dolphins more dangerous than they've ever been under McDaniel. The AFC is unforgiving, and Miami knows they can't afford to waste windows. The Chiefs reload every year, the Bengals are lurking, the Bills aren't going anywhere, and even the Ravens have retooled. Miami isn't just playing for playoff berths anymore, they're chasing real contention. And in that kind of race, every piece matters. A move like bringing in BOURNE doesn't just deepen the roster. It changes the way opponents prepare, it buys time for Hill and Waddle to recover during games, it gives McDaniel one more tool in his endless box of creative plays. That's the kind of detail that separates contenders from the teams that flame out in the wild card round. Dolphins fans are right to be excited, because this isn't just about filling a spot. It's about raising the ceiling of the entire offense. That's a wrap for today's dive. If you're loving the content, share it with a fellow Dolphins fan, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a splash. Fins up.